over the last 10 months, we've kind of gotten used to a certain way of doing things. As the missions have expanded, of course, we've gotten a slight variety in missions, but we've gotten used to doing things a certain way. And for most of us, that's playing in the PU solo, when we're doing the missions at least. We go out, we get a pickup order, go here, pick this thing up, deliver it to another spot. And once you get there and you get to the location, whether you realize it or not, the race is on, because you're going against a countdown and you don't know where the countdown is. And so there's a certain amount of fear and trepidation in doing these things. You're running in, you got to go, you got to pick up the package, but at any point, someone else could turn up on the approach and they could start heading towards this location. Maybe they're 40 kilometers away, maybe they're 50, maybe they're getting there pretty quickly. You don't know. So the idea is get in, grab the goods, get back on your ship, and get the hell out of there. But in 3.3, missions are about to get a lot more complicated because there is going to be FPS action on the ground now. So what used to be a quick grab and go might turn into something else. Now, certainly simple package delivery missions will probably remain the same, but we're probably going to be getting other missions. Go to this location and liberate, let's say that, some goods and then deliver them to another location. And that might require a little FPS action. And that, of course, to do it properly in a game where you can die, in a game where you can lose your stuff, you kind of have to take a bit of a careful approach to that. You can't just go, well, I'm just going to go in there guns blazing and let's see what happens, because the downside is you could be sitting there waiting for all your goods to repopulate in your hangar through the insurance system, and you might have to go out and purchase a new gun, new armor, blah, 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 right? It can be a major headache. So you kind of want to go about it a little bit, analytically, a little bit tactically, not so much just run and gun, but you want to be a little bit smart about things. But here's the problem is, once again, another ship could be coming in to do that same mission. And if you're caught on the ground trying to have a gunfight with your enemies and trying to pick your way through them to get to the objective, it can be somewhat awkward when your ship is lying there unguarded and unprotected. Now, of course, NPCs could theoretically be on board your ship, guarding your ship, protecting it from, say, someone else coming onto your ship or something like that. But will they be able to fly your ship, and will they be able to pilot it competently in combat enough that you can carry on with your ground mission? Or will they be competent enough that you can send them to do the ground mission while you operate your ship? Vice versa. And even if they are, you have to realize that AI NPCs that we control, that work for us, that are a part of our crew, are still something that is beyond the horizon of the current roadmap. This is something that requires, there's some parts of Squadron 42, if I remember correctly, that have to be completed in order for this to exist in the game, right? In order for this to exist in Star Citizen. It's one of those interdependencies between the two titles. So it's something that we probably will not get a date on for some time. In the meantime, we're kind of left with an interesting problem, whereas the missions get more complex. You might find yourself in a situation where you might have to link up with other people, at least on a social level, and work together as a team to defeat these much more complicated objectives rather than the very basic missions that we have right now. Now, one of the major complications to this, and I know that there's a lot of you out there who are in the same situation that I am in. You have a lot of friends who play Star Citizen, or a lot of friends who have backed Star Citizen, and more or less have at least some version of Star Citizen at some point still on their PC. But the truth is that most of these people that we normally would play with are generally in that kind of mindset of, yeah, when it's playable and enjoyable, I'll start playing it again. But right now, it's a mess, but it's understandably, to a certain degree, a mess. And so a lot of those people are kind of holding back. Now, hopefully with the performance upgrades that we're supposed to get in 3.3, which look promising, appear promising, we might get to a point where it'll be a lot easier to kind of coerce people into playing with us so that we can achieve these much more difficult objectives. But be prepared for the fact that as the missions go up in complexity and become something akin to what they're going to be in the persistent universe, in the live version of the persistent universe that we're playing for real and not just alpha testing or beta testing, you might be in a situation where these kind of social connections are almost a requirement. Now, that's not to say that it's ultimately, the way missions should be designed ultimately should service that social connection or that enforced social connection, because I don't really believe in that. Like yesterday we were talking about multiple solutions, creative solutions to problems, and there are ways that you can kind of counter some of these issues, right? Now, of course, you might remember the Drake Dragonfly, of course, space bike, which for right now is kind of just a fun putting around on a moon or around a space station type vehicle. It doesn't really have a lot of utility. Its one SCU of cargo space has yet to materialize in a functional way, so you can't really use it for what it's meant to be used for right now, other than just kind of shooting around on Daymar or Yella or wherever. But we might get to a point where, for the sake of your own security, let's say you get to a point with missions where there's an escalating complexity, much like the missions that we have now. Of course, if you do a certain mission, you can open up other missions. For instance, on the pirate side, you kill the satellites around Grim Hex. That opens up the 680 rewards, and then onwards you do another mission where you gotta dispose of a corpse for Rudo, and then you open up a whole new tier of rewards. And maybe at that point you get to a point where, sorry, I had to pause the video, had to sneeze there, but you get to a point where maybe you don't have to worry so much about competition. You've gone far enough up the scale that there isn't a lot of competition, but you still have to be careful. Maybe you have something like a Drake Cutlass or a Misk Freelancer, ships that I've always been very hype about. You can carry something like this. Maybe you can park some ways away from the objective and kind of sneak in with a Drake Dragonfly or a Nox if it's just a mission where you got to take somebody out but you don't have to worry about bringing back cargo, that sort of thing. And you can use that vehicle to kind of work your way in without being spotted, so you can kind of sneak in, get the objective done, and get out of there. If you have those facilities or those vehicles available to you, which has always kind of been one of the ideas in the background that something that I've talked about many times in the past, but now with it kind of coming to the forefront as we are getting to a point where the missions are at a level of complexity where these things are justified and now realistic expectations. You may find yourself at a point where you're like, you know what, I might need to rethink what I've purchased. And maybe that space bike that I said, I'll wait and I'll get it in game, maybe that's a little bit more important. These are certainly things that you should think about, certainly things that you should consider. And the reason why I bring them up, especially now, because obviously CitizenCon, there's going to be a ship sale. There's usually a ship sale, and we are moving towards the anniversary sale, which is middle-ish, end of November. And that's generally when people tend to do a lot of rejigging of their fleet, and they kind of move things around. They go, well, that didn't really pan out, or that's beyond the horizon. maybe I want to kind of move things around, at least temporarily, so that while I'm playing in the PU or the PTU, that I have some stuff that kind of makes it a little bit more fun for me, that enables me, that allows me to explore the game. This is generally the best time of year to kind of think about these things, even if you don't end up making a permanent choice, just a just for now choice in terms of moving a few things around in your hangar. It's a good time to think about these things because we are now kind of coming to a point where these things that we talked about in the abstract are now becoming a reality, and hopefully we're getting to a place with the client where the playability of the game and the enjoyability of the game are going to be much higher, and the because the performance is going to be, hopefully, fingers crossed, that much better. It's an interesting time to start really asking these questions again and start going like, okay, what do I own? What makes sense? What's practical? What's impractical? And what's going to best enable me to enjoy, let's say, the next year, the next 2 years of the game's development. Anyways, just some food for thought. Tomorrow is the big day, so let's see what's going to happen next. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.